Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Moazzam Ali Sandhu, and you are listening and watching Revive FM 94.0. And today we are going to discuss the COVID rules, the regulations, the guidance, the government guidance and the local authority guidance, that what people can do and what they cannot do. And also there are so many issues in recently we have seen, most of you have seen that there are crimes, knife crimes happened in Barking, Waltham Forest and neighbor boroughs in the local community, which is concerned a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, today you will have the opportunity to listen the expert in the criminal defense law and the criminal law, Muhammad Shafeeque, who is a leading criminal defense solicitor, owner of and principal solicitor at the Allied Law Chamber. Please welcome Muhammad Shafeeque. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So first of all, really appreciate you made it today. I know this is the last day of the week and you must be very busy. I appreciate your time. Because of on 29th of March, the new rules are going to in place. The some restrictions of lockdown is going to be lifted. So we want your opinions on that, because a lot of people they need to know that what they can do, what they cannot do. There's so many confusions, so many misinformations and rumors in the society. So we want your help to understand what is going to happen.
Yes. First of all, I think I know there's many rumors that's going around, but what you need to be looking because it's a clear guideline by the government is available clearly on the BBC website as well. So it's very easy to follow the restrictions of your areas. I mean, whatever the restrictions are there, and then what are going to be lifted and what going to be in place. So you just carry on, follow them. And many people, they think, that's the crucial thing. What you asking me the question, I think the most important bit I consider myself as a member of the community. That many people think, okay, it's okay, I can drive around, I'll go out, take the kids around, drive around, we're not going anywhere. But the current rule is stay home. It's not something that you just go out and do whatever you want to do and spin around and come back. That's what not the rule says. The rule says stay home. The stay home means the stay home. Okay, so for example, you can go out for the emergency stuff or the necessary shopping, which is the grocery shopping, any medical stuff. But it doesn't mean that you drive around about 50 miles away from your home or 100 miles away from your home. Are you going to take a takeaway or something like that? That's not what the rule says. The rule says you stay home. That's the first thing you should follow. And the second, I think everybody knows the UK Parliament, they acted very actively and they brought the rules in, so Public Safety Act. And that's again, I think going to the new amendments, they're going to be implemented from the 29th of March, which they are, I mean, more concerns. Many people, they heard about a £5,000 fine. So travel abroad. So for example, if you're traveling abroad without any emergency, so now many people think, okay, it's fine. We can, this is the emergency. We have it. We can travel around the globe. But that's not the case. But you should be very careful. There are documents the government has asked. So you should produce as an piece of evidence in order to travel abroad. So you should have those documents in place before you deciding to travel abroad.
Yes. Yeah, I just wanted to share a few things, which is just front of me, about the rules. As you mentioned very rightly, the UK Parliament acted significantly in support of the authorities, in support of the enforcement agencies and the police and governments. There are a few laws and regulations which has been implemented in UK. If someone is living in England, the rules are the health Protection Coronavirus International Travel England Regulations 2020, the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions England Regulations 2020, the Health Protections Coronavirus Wearing of Mask Covering in the Relevant Place Regulations 2020, the Health Protections Coronavirus Collection of Contact Details, etc., and related requirements regulations 2020, the Health Protections Coronavirus Restrictions Self-Isolation regulations 2020, and the last one, the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions Local Authority Enforcement Powers regulations 2020. So these are altogether 6 acts, so far as these are the regulations which are widely applied across the England. You honestly, being a law-abiding citizen, we of course need to give the message across the community that they must follow the government guidance, the government regulations. So what do you first of all comment on the proactive role of the Parliament in order to implement these rules and the protecting the society?
Yeah. So I think, as you rightly pointed out, a couple of the acts that's some to do with the local authorities,
Yeah.
and the most recent that's being laid on before the Parliament on the 20, I think was it March to 22nd, and it was and then it's going to be implemented, going to be enforced by the 29th of March. So that's the overall act for the England. So it's not for Wales or Scotland. It's especially for public health England. So, and that's the coronavirus restrictions. That's the steps. And what I say is the name of the act is the Public Protection Regulations 2021. So in terms of the coronavirus, but that is the one that's more in the talks. That's the people talking about, like a fine, which is the most everybody picking up one point, which is the £5,000 fine travel abroad. But they're not looking at the other things. That's the £400 fine, £800 fine if anybody breaches any of the restrictions. It's nothing to do with. The whole act is nothing to do with only the travel abroad. It covers within the country as well, not only to travel abroad. So, for example, if you're breaching restrictions traveling within the city from one place to other place without any reason, so that's the act then covers those financial penalties as well. So the financial penalty that's going to be imposed, for example, the first time, and then if you breach the same again, so the second time the financial penalty will be higher than the first time.
Right. So do you think, Mr. Shafeeque, that the police, after the introducing these regulations, police can stop and check every single individual who are moving around, that whether or not they're breaching the COVID rules or regulations?
No, that's interesting. It's not after this act only, but the police is already active. So I had the dealing of the case outside the London, in Suffolk area, where my clients, they were stopped basically traveling in that region during the lockdown. So they were stopped because of the COVID situation. So it means the police authorities are already active and they are checking, and it's random check. It's not everybody can be, they can't do everybody to be checked, but the random checks, and anybody who is out of the area, if they are out of the area without any valid reason, which is to do with emergency stuff, so they are not allowed to travel in that area. It means they are breaching that. That's number one. Number two, as you said, the authorities will be checking afterwards now. Yes, authority will be checking from the airports. Anybody traveling out, you know that the form has to be completed. And there is a form already that you're completing before the 29th of the March. And there is another form that you're going to be completing traveling out of the country after from 29th March onward. So the reason you put there, there has to be a valid reason supported with the evidence. Otherwise, you're gonna face the fine.
Right, Mr. Shafeeque, this is honestly very important information, and the reason I requested you today is to make aware the other people and the community members that they must not breach the COVID restrictions, otherwise they will be face the serious consequences. So, just a quick one. I want to read a few things which says that the how the rules will change on 29th of March. So you will be able to meet outdoors either in a group of 6 from any number of households or in a group of any size from up to 2 households. Each household can include existing support bubbles if eligible. You will be able to take a part in a formally organized outdoor sports with any number of people. Outdoor sports venues and facilities will be able to reopen. Childcare and supervised activities will be allowed outdoors for all children. Formally organized parent and child groups will be able to take place outdoors for up to 15 to 10 days. So from 1st April, if you have been identified as clinically extremely vulnerable, you will no longer be advised to shield. However, you should continue to take extra precautions to protect yourself. So this is the basic things. And then they said that the national lockdown, stay at home, you should follow this guidance in full. You can be fined if you break the law. Approximately 1 in 3 people who have coronavirus have no symptoms and could be spreading it without realizing it. This is very dangerous, actually. Since a long time, this information has been shared by the scientists that 1 in 3 person may have a coronavirus without any symptoms, and he may think he's a fit. He can go anywhere, he can meet people, he can do shopping, but unfortunately, if he has coronavirus without any symptoms, he is going to spread the coronavirus. This is actually giving a lot of confusing situations. Nobody knows. So, what is your comment on this?
Yes. So the first point you rightly pointed out the points. That's from the 29th of the March. The stay home restriction will be, will end anyway. So, and you will be allowed to go out of your house. It doesn't mean you can go and visit other people, but it's meeting out the house, okay, not in. So the first time you can go to somebody's house is, I think it's 17th of the May. I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but I don't think so. There is anything that's coming before that. Okay, that's the first thing. And that's the second thing is about the symptom that you said. I'm a lawyer. I'm a legal professional. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you one thing. Just a couple of months ago, one of my friend, he was traveling out of the country.
Right.
And then one of the conditions to travel out of the country was to get yourself tested before you get onto the aeroplane. So he got tested. He had no symptom whatsoever of any of coronavirus, but he was positive.
All right. Okay. So
That's the thing that you mentioning. So if he was thinking he's a positive, so it means he was traveling around, he was going to the work, he was doing everything what was possible for a normal person to do. So, but actually he was carrying the coronavirus. So that could be very, very dangerous for those people who are, got underlying health conditions. If he spread around, that would be the dangerous moves that he was making at the time without knowing that he is the main reason to spread the coronavirus. So that is the one that you're pointing out at the moment. Yes, of course, we had the personal experience. One of my close friends had it. And then I went on to deliver him the food for the next 2 weeks when he was in self-quarantine.
Yeah, there is one thing which is, I think, the audience need to understand that when you can leave home, according to the new regulations, it says that you must not leave or be outside of your home except where you have a reasonable excuse. This
Yeah.
is the law. So, reasonable excuse, everyone who is leaving the house must have a reasonable excuse. You was when we were talking before the show, you was very rightly said that I think you said this is not a reasonable excuse if someone living in London going to Birmingham and saying that he is buying something from there.
Yeah, that's not a reasonable excuse. But the reasonable excuse is, for example, if you're going to your local shop to buy something, that may be a reasonable excuse. It could be nowadays the building shops are open. If somebody is doing the building work, so if they're going to buy, that is a reasonable excuse. If you're going to buy the medications, it's a reasonable excuse. If you're going to buy the groceries, it's a reasonable excuse. If the new,
What about
according to the new restrictions, stay home is going to be lifted. You're going out for a walk, it's a reasonable excuse. So
what
it's
about
not
buying a car? If someone
so
buying
you,
a car
yeah.
outside,
So the car, when you are going to buy a car, so you have to go to the showroom actually, either to pick up the car. So that's the reasonable excuse. It's not something you're going to see somebody on his birthday. So you're celebrating a birthday. That's not I won't say is, but it depending on how the authorities see you at the time when they're going to question you.
exactly. And they said that the police can take actions against you if you leave home without a reasonable excuse and
Yeah,
issue you with a fine, fixed penalty notice up to £200 first
yeah,
time,
yeah.
first offense, and it can be doubling for further offenses up to maximum £6,400.
That's correct. Each time it's double. Each time is double. Each time it goes up. So
And
it's
this is
not a
a cap.
reasonable excuse. It's
6,400 is a cap.
sorry,
£6,400 is a
it's a
maximum
top cap. Top cap.
top cap. Okay. So yeah, carry on. What you're saying, reasonable
Yeah,
excuse?
it's not a reasonable excuse. But, you may have heard the case uh, up down the country that somebody was doing the celebration in their garden. The 30
Yeah.
people were celebrating, and they
Yeah.
were done by the drones. The police authorities sent the drone and they videos them, and then each of them I think was approximately, they were heavily fined anyway.
Oh my God, they use the drone to find out what is happening in the garden.
That's correct.
So who used the
It
drone?
was reported. It was reported. The drone captured them.
The drone captured them. It was. Do you think the police can use drone to find out these things? Is it not the breach of privacy?
No, because you are breaching the rule already. When you are breaching the rule, there is no breach of privacy. If you are committing a crime, so there is no no breach of privacy then.
Right. Okay. So there is a few headings they mentioned. The reasonable excuse can be the work, volunteering, essential activities, education and childcare, meeting others and care. In the meeting other than care, I think this is very small bullet points worth mentioning here. You can leave home to visit people in your support bubble, to
Yeah.
provide informal childcare for children under 14,
Hmm.
provide emergency assistance, to attend a support group for respite care, where the care is being provided to a vulnerable person, to provide care or assistance for disabled. So you can also meet with other person, including inside someone's house, where necessary to provide care. However, you must only leave home where it is reasonably necessary to provide care or assistance. So everywhere it is reasonable, reasonable excuse, reasonable word is randomly used in all the guidance. So I think this is a very big gray area. Everyone need to
It's
justify.
yeah, it's open for interpretation. For the lawyers, it's a big area, but it's open for interpretation.
Yeah, and also they said medical reasons, maternity, avoiding injury, harms, compassionate visits. Okay, so compassionate visit, they said you may also leave home to visit someone who is dying or someone in a care home,
That's
if
correct.
permitted under care home guidance. hospice or hospital, or to accompany them to a medical appointment. Animal welfare, communal worship, further reasonable excuses. It says there are further reasonable excuses. For example, you may leave home to fulfill legal obligations. Can someone leave home to visit their solicitor?
Yes, especially when the things cannot be done. Without them being attended at the offices, so they can on a pre-arranged visit.
Pre-arranged visits,
Yeah.
The appointments only.
Appointments only.
Appointments only, okay. Or to carry out activities relating to buying, selling, letting, or renting a residential property for purposes of picketing, or where it is reasonably necessary for voting in an election or referendum.
Yeah. So
Those,
sorry, I'm just gonna pause you 1 second, because
yeah,
you said to visit the solicitor. For example, I can tell you, I was the other day in Ipswich representing two clients there.
right.
So the client had to turn up. There was no excuse. So court orders. So you have to come. The lawyer has to be there. So the meeting clients, there is a room. There were rooms available for the conferences to have with the clients. So
Yeah.
these types of the things. For example, if you're going to see a lawyer in the office for something which cannot be done without being present in person, so you can go. For example, you're going to witness somebody's signature, so it's going to sign some documents. How it can be done without not you being present there? So you have to be there. So, for example, you want some document to be certified from your lawyer, so you cannot do it without producing the originals. So who's gonna produce? You're gonna produce the originals. So many things that you have to go to the lawyer. So I can understand if the case is ongoing and the civil nature of case. For example, you buying a house, you instruct the lawyer, no identification required. If the identification procedure has been passed, but the no identification required, then few things can be discussed over the telephone. But where you have to be present, so that's the reasonable excuse.
Yes, that is very rightly said. So these are the rules which is the people need to understand, and they need to follow these rules. Otherwise, the police can take actions and they can find up to £6,400 maximum and £200 minimum.
That's the
And
start with. The 200 is start with.
you can be given a fixed penalty notice 200 for first offense, doubling for further offense up to maximum 6,400. You can be fined 800 if you attend a private gathering such as a house party or over 15 people from outside your household, which will double for each repeat offense to maximum level of 6,400. If you hold or are involved in holding an illegal gathering of over 30 people, the police can issue fines of £10,000.
Yes.
So don't you think that this is very harsh? People,
No.
first of all, let me tell you what the voice of the people. They says we are in lockdown, we are suffering, we are staying away since 1 year. You know that recently the coronavirus lockdown in UK has completed its 1 year. So people who are facing or going through with the serious difficulties, mental health issues, the stresses, they are away from their loved ones, their brothers, sisters, parents are unable to see their children, the children are unable to see their parents, so they can't see their friends and family members. They're really desperate to see each other's. People are in the lockdown following the COVID restrictions since 1 year now, and if in any event, if they do breach any of these restrictions, don't you think this is too much the penalizing them, and very harsh decisions to fine up to £10,000? And last one, bearing in mind people are suffering financially as well.
Yeah. The first thing is, but it's not a. I understand that people can say it's been a year we're not seeing each other, but it's not the year. Which the restriction, the recent restrictions, they are not in place for a year. They are only in place for the last few months. Okay,
No,
before that you was able to see your parents. You were able to see your. There was 6 people that were allowed to go into each other's house. Okay, so now coming to the point where the fine is. Yes, the fine is to save you guys. The authorities, they have increased the limit of the fines to save you from this, to save your loved one from this. Because as you rightly pointed out, one element, that's a person, if carrying a coronavirus and there are symptoms, I mean there are no symptoms, and that's kind of cases are there, and then the scientist has pointed out those are more dangerous cases. So that's one I told you, because we personally experienced. One of my friend, he had a coronavirus without knowing anything, no symptoms. So for example, if you are carrying one of those symptoms, or if you are one of those patients who doesn't show up any kind of symptoms, and then you turn up to see your loved ones, what will happen to your loved ones, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your mothers? And that's, I think, on that point, authorities, whatever the authorities are doing, they doing to save you from this, to save your loved one from this. It's not a small thing. Everything they're doing it to protect you. So I think the people should think this is for their protection. It's not to penalize them. This is for their protection. What they're going to do is, because they're putting the fine element in there, so the people think of twice before breaching the rule. Okay, if we do this one, we will breach. If there was no rule implemented, if there was no rule in place, the people would have breached so many times, gone over to see many people. So the spread could have been even worse. So it's just to save your lives, save your loved ones. I think we should cooperate with the authorities. We should follow the rules. We should help everybody, and the NHS, that they got the most burden on them at this critical time, because anybody who got suffering from the coronavirus, they're the one they're putting the lives. I mean, their own lives. They are in such kind of things. They're dealing with these patients, and they're saving us. And we should support them, and we should support the authorities in this critical time.
Absolutely, you are very rightly said, Mr. Shafeeque. Of course, this is not for the government. This is the protection of your beloved ones. This is the protection of the whole society. This is the security and protection for the NHS, to save the NHS, and we must not breach the rules. And also, the limit of 10,000 is not a harsh one, but it is. If someone breach it, they have to face this fine, because this thing will become the example for the rest of the society, that if they do this, they will have to face this fine as well. So this is how the governments control and apply the rules. I completely agree with you, and I think a lot of the people who thinks this is a harsh and very high fine, they must understand that this is a very reasonable rules and regulations, and we must not breach the rules. Mr. Shafeeque, I want you to comment on few things after this discussions, because there's so many concerns in relations to safety and security in the society, within our community. Recently, few incidents happens in our boroughs and neighbor boroughs, Barking and Dagenham, Redbridge, and also the Waltham Forest knife crimes. Do you think that the police is providing, police is not protecting properly or handling the knife crime issues?
No, what I think is, because you may have seen for the last few years there was a cut down in the policing and everything. So I think that's given a little bit loophole to these criminals, because there is not enough policing on the street. But in the most recent time, what happened is, because of the coronavirus, I can tell you, the streets are not as patrolled by the police as they were before, and they are busy dealing with many other things due to the coronavirus. And because there is no such presence on the streets, these criminals, they use those streets for their own activities. For example, I mean, like a knife crime, you said, and there are not many people on the streets, and they saw the opportunity, and they then go for it. So I can understand behind the knife crime, knife crime, there are many other things as well. It's not only the one the policing. There are many others. The gangs are there. There's everything. The drug dealers are there. So there's many things that's behind it. And then it's not only simple, just the knife crime. You say, I know it's very dangerous for the society. It's not safe for the children. It's not safe for any adult as well. So when they're walking on their own on the street, they should feel safe rather than they be, I mean, all the time in a position, all right, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe. What will happen? What will happen? This should not be the case. We live in a society. We live in a developed countries. We see very good, cooperation from the police. We see the justice system. We see everything in a country. We live in such a country, and these things should be minimized in these things.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Shafeeque. This is the end of our show. You very rightly said these things, that the cut of the police is one of the reasons that the crime ratio is going up again. So hopefully we will have you again in another show related topics. Thank you for your participation.
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This is very informative, the new measures of the COVID restrictions and the regulations in place after 29th of March. Please keep watching and listening to Revive FM 94.0.